Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hello Velocity podcast, where we help corporate women level up without burning out. I'm your host, Brittany Canaski, leadership coach and trainer here at Hello Velocity. And today we're joined by Susan Barber to discuss the stress of navigating change and uncertainty at work. Sue is a leadership, visibility, and influence expert who helps high-performing leaders stop being overlooked and start being recognized for their impact. As a former Fortune 500 IT director, she saw firsthand that strong performance alone doesn't guarantee advancement. Leaders must communicate their values strategically to be seen as ready for more. Today, she works with organizations and senior leaders to strengthen executive presence, internal influence, and leadership visibility. She's the author of Your Journey to Visibility Workbook, The Visibility Factor, and host of the Visibility Factor podcast. Welcome, Sue.
Thanks so much. So it's fun to hear people read your bio.
Right? It's I don't know, it is a weird experience sitting there listening, right? Like, oh yeah, I did do all of those things. This is wonderful. And it's empowering.
Yeah, very cool.
Yes. So let's dive in. I'd love to hear more about what got you into your line of work, and maybe even more specifically, why visibility. I read that word so many times just now, and it's really sticking out to me. So I'd love to hear.
Yeah, it's definitely my platform for sure. You know, I was thinking I was being visible in corporate when I was still there. I was doing all the right things, top talent, in leadership programs. And so I got a little complacent, and I was given feedback that I wasn't being as visible as I should be. And so that was kind of a pivotal moment for me to hear that, a little defensive in the moment hearing it, but recognizing that she wouldn't tell me that if it wasn't true because I had trusted her. So I think it just led me down this path of how can you be visible in a way that's not bragging, that is more your authentic style and allows you to, share your voice, share your ideas, share your creativity. And I think what I'm recognizing more and more after writing 2 books and all the podcasts and conversations about visibility is that we're really good as we come up in the organization at execution. We're good at getting things done, but we're not always good at talking about what we've done and letting people know that we've done those things. And so that to me is like the big visibility gap that people have and don't even realize that they have it. So I'm trying to help people understand that they can do this in a way that feels comfortable for them. And it isn't, a big scary thing. You don't have to get on stage, but it's just literally asking questions in meetings, having opportunities to share what you think.
This is huge. I hear this a lot with my clients too, of either, they think they need to keep proving themselves and doing the hard work and raising their hand for all these things. And then someday someone will just recognize them, right? Of all this hard work is finally paying off.
Yes.
Or they're doing all this hard work and then people are giving them feedback, like you said too. I've had a similar client recently getting the feedback that she's not confident and she thought she was. So there's that side of it too. You might be doing the work and maybe showing up, but how are other people perceiving it in the room? So it's so important. And I think, like you're saying, it's not scary. It's not so daunting, but people maybe think it is because it's out of our comfort zone a lot of times.
Yeah, it feels big, right? When you've never done it before and you see other people bragging and you think you have to be that way, but you really don't. You can just be yourself and start, asking questions or sharing information. And I think the pivotal thing that really also struck me was that another mentor, not the one that gave me the feedback, said to me, Sue, you were hired for a reason. And if you're not sharing the information with your leadership team, then they're going to make a decision that might be incorrect. And that's not on them, that's on you. And that was like, wow, okay, you're right, of course. And then I also wasn't giving my team visibility either because, I'm in rooms that they're not in. So you have to really think about as a leader, especially a leader of people or big programs, that you have to do more. You have to talk about things more so that everybody gets the visibility that they need.
Love that. It's about the rest of your team too, and making sure other people are visible, and that being part of your responsibility as a leader and leading others. And I think it's setting a great example for the people on your team or even your peers.
Yes.
Yeah. So what got you into starting your own business with coaching? It sounds like you experienced a lot of this firsthand. I know we have a similar journey, so I'd love to hear more about it for our listeners too. Of you experienced this firsthand in some big companies, and now you're own your own business. You're coaching other people. You've written books, workbooks. Yeah, what was that transition like, and what made you transition to your own company?
Well, our company, so I worked for Kraft and it was becoming Kraft Heinz at the time. It was acquired by 3G Capital. And so a lot of things were going to change. And I had already been getting my coaching certification at night, thinking it was a great plan B for the future. And as things came together, I just realized that maybe this is the time for me to leave. And they did offer me a role, but it wasn't a role I was really excited about at all. So I said, you know what, this is the time. So I walked away after 26 years, which is really scary to do and think about. But it was kind of empowering. You know, the first day of not having any meetings and not having anything to do was a little strange. I think the biggest shift was, though, identity, because when you're with a company or any company for any period of time, you start to identify with that company, your role, what you do. And when you introduce yourself, that's what you say. And so
Mm,
when you don't have that anymore, you have to come up with, okay, what am I going to say now? And how am I going to build that same credibility for me, not the credibility that I had because of craft? So I think that was one of the biggest shifts that I realized after the fact, after I left, that I would need to do. And because I went through all of that challenge with visibility, it just struck me as an opportunity maybe for other people to learn what I learned. And so I started writing a blog every day for 18 months,
mm,
mostly to change from being an IT director into becoming a leadership coach and starting to think about that in a bigger way and have others see me that way. And what happened was I shared a lot of vulnerable stories, a lot of things that had happened to me that no one knew. And I had a lot of former craft people initially reach out and say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know that was happening to you. That's happening to me right now. How did you figure it out? Help me." So that's how I got my first clients. And so that journey just kind of started much quicker than I thought it would. I wasn't sure how it was all going to come together and figured it out. And I've been doing that for the last 10 years. And the books and the podcast were always on the plan. It took a little longer than I thought it might take to write them and get them out there, but I'm excited to just see how people are reacting to them and really taking some of the things that I'm sharing in there and being able to implement them pretty quickly.
wow, love this journey that you've been on to and practicing the visibility firsthand yourself in corporate. And then now it sounds like in your own business, you're
Right?
being challenged to be more visible and, share this credibility without a huge brand behind you. That's great that you're able to use it and learn from it on both sides and now share it with so many other people too through these books and,
Yes.
and coaching.
Yeah, that didn't happen right away, though, I'll tell you. I mean, going on video online was not my favorite thing to do initially. And so I tell people, like, I started my own Facebook group, went live in my own Facebook group just to practice myself. So if anyone's nervous about video, it's a great way to get more comfortable with it. But because a lot of things are, they're looking for video now. And so hiding a little bit more in the beginning of my company, but now I'm really very comfortable with it. And I just feel like it's an opportunity and a responsibility to talk about the books and what I'm doing. Otherwise, people won't know.
Mm-hmm. I feel the same with recording video is uncomfortable at first, but the more you do it, the more easy it
Yeah.
gets. And especially my solo podcast episodes or mini trainings I'm doing on YouTube, it's just me staring at my laptop and, like, all right, I don't know, it's just so different when you have someone live that you're talking to or in a coaching session or something. And
Yeah,
then to just be staring at a electronic, or piece of electronic, like, all right, let me try to connect with this.
exactly.
Yeah. So, as you know, this season of the podcast is all about stress, overwhelm, burnout, and I'm excited to dig into this from something we had talked about is navigating change and uncertainty and how that brings out stress. And there's so many people going through so much change and uncertainty right now in their corporate careers, and even from your background, I know you went through that, quite a few years ago too, of just that uncertainty of a big company buying out your company and the merger and what is that going to mean for me and my job, and things are changing. So what kind of changes are you seeing, impacting your clients most these days within their corporate careers?
What's interesting is it's kind of consistent. If you observe over a number of years, people centralize organizations and they decentralize the organization. They buy things, they sell things. It's very common. And I think a lot of things have continued to happen. Maybe things happen a little faster now for organizations to be acquired. I think a lot of bigger companies are looking for smaller ones to acquire. And So I think if you look in the media and you look online, you see a lot of people saying, I'm leaving my organization, looking for the next thing. And I think, the fear of AI has come into play. And some roles, yes, will be replaced by AI, but many won't. And I think that's, it's a narrative that we have to recognize is out there, and we have to determine for us and what we do whether or not it's going to impact us and what can we do to prepare for that or really use it in a way that helps us. And so I think there's just a lot of fear and unknowns and uncertainty in organizations right now. A lot of them are letting go of people and not replacing them. So there's more work to do with less people. And so that brings a lot of fear and uncertainty and anxiety into everyone's world. And that just isn't easy to work with. When you have a big job already to do, adding that on top of it is more difficult.
Yeah, there are so many different angles to change and uncertainty right now. And I know I can't go anywhere on the internet or LinkedIn without seeing something about AI right now. And
Mhm.
so I'm so over it, to be honest with you. I know it's like we have to keep talking about it and keep addressing it, but there is so much fear around that too, and what's going to change. And then, even like you said, layoffs, or even the fear of being laid off, or the fear of someone on your team being laid off, how that could change your role, your responsibilities. So, how are you seeing stress pop up during these different times of change and uncertainty for people in corporate?
A lot of people I think just almost tend to shrink when these things happen, meaning they play small, they do the best that they can to get through the day kind of moments. They don't always think about the bigger picture and what this could mean for them, right? Because I believe change brings opportunities. And so it's really easy to just kind of hunker down a little bit and hope it gets better. But to me, I've always looked at any change we went through, and we went through many, not just the one I mentioned, but over the years, so many. And I think there's an opportunity for people to say, what can I control? Because there's a lot of things that are out of my control. What can I control? And most of the time, there are things that they can start to do to either help themselves get involved in something that might help them for the future, have conversations with people to learn what's really happening behind the scenes that they may not have through the normal communication channels, find ways to mentor others, get involved in something that's just brand new for you that kind of motivates you and excites you. And I can tell you from experience, multiple situations where there were very chaotic crisis moments in our company, and I didn't intentionally do this at the time, but now I help other people think about it intentionally. And that was to really step up, because in absence of someone doing something, making a decision, moving something forward, there's an opportunity for you to potentially do that for yourself, for your team, for a project that's stuck. And so I like people to think about it as an opportunity to step up in a bigger way and be a leader to move something forward. And I think it's not something everyone thinks about, but in my experience, it really is a game changer, because people start to see a new side of you that you may not have shown before. And so it is a balancing act, right, of taking care of yourself through this time, but it could also be an opportunity. So I just wanted to share that with people because I don't think it's the top thing people consider when change and uncertainty is happening.
Yeah, I love this perspective where it sounds more like an invitation to step up, and maybe
Hmm.
may not be right for everyone, or you may not be in a place where you can or have the capacity to do it, or even emotional capacity to do it, if you are about to be laid off or something like that. Totally understand
Yeah.
if that's not right, or if it's not the time for you. But it is such an opportunity for some people to really stand out and to help others, to help themselves, to really be more visible, like you're saying, and yeah, and help others through such a difficult time. Because I see that too. A lot of people, I think their instinct is to shut down, like you said, or kind of
Hmm.
shrink. And I've seen too some models that I've used in trainings about change and uncertainty is usually the first two steps people go through is deny and then resist. So deny, like, oh, especially with the AI as an example, oh, that, won't impact my job, or it won't change anything. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's still going to take 10 years before it impacts anything. And then the resist is, oh, AI is being implemented in our company, but I'm not going to use it. Everyone else is going to use it. And I'm going to keep doing what I've always done. And, things like that. And people are
Yeah.
usually slowly moving through those first two steps. And some people move through it quicker, some people move through it slowly, but maybe even I think for a lot of people, it can be helpful to just recognize maybe where you're at in that. Are you denying it? Are you resisting it? Or are you becoming more open to change? And can you step up and think of it as an opportunity and help your team and help yourself to learn something new and experiment and see what's going to work for you?
Yeah, I think even leaders of teams, when I think about our transformations and transitions that we went through in all those situations, I felt like my role was to be the calm in the storm and to be the composed person for the most part, wherever possible, that change is going to happen. We can't, go back in time. Everybody wishes for that. And I think it's natural and normal to want that. But the sooner you can get your team across, the change curve, the better off you are and help them see the opportunities and that you're going to be there for them and you're going to share information as you get it and be a little more, I'll say, transparent about your own feelings about some of the change that is happening. I think being a middle leader in an organization, whether that's, a new manager or all the way up to even a VP, it is a hard place to be because you're the face who is communicating a lot of this information or fielding a lot of questions about what's happening. And so you really do have to be mindful of what can you share, what can't you share, and how do you navigate this for yourself, first of all, but also for the team and helping them get through it.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go next. There's, you gave so many specific tips and recommendations for individuals, how they can maybe step up into this opportunity of change. But when it comes to leaders, I totally agree. We need to be that calm during the storm. And I know that is easier said than done.
Sure.
So any specific, tips, techniques, recommendations of how to be that face or how to support others without causing more stress during change and uncertainty?
I think the first moment when I heard I think of another situation where we were going to split the company into two and we had a year to do it. And I remember sitting in the room thinking, oh my gosh, my team is probably freaking out right now. And how am I going to get myself in a good place to be able to have this conversation with them? And so, of course, I wanted to go back to the way it was too. I wanted it to be great and not to have to split the company because that meant, not only breaking apart a company and all the knowledge that we have, but also the people, right? Half the people are going to go to the new company and half of us are going to stay at the other one. So that was my first thought. And then I just talked to them and said, tell me what's happening for you. Tell me how you're feeling. I will share what I can when I know it, but I also need you to know that I'm going to know things that I can't share with you right away. And as soon as I can, I will. And I felt like we needed to establish this, not that we didn't already have trust, but now trust about this situation and make sure that they understood that I was going to be there for them through it all. And one of the things I did is, I don't know who's going to which company. I don't know who's staying, who's going. Maybe people will even exit the organization. But what I will tell you is that we are going to get done what we need to get done. I want you to share with me any questions, comments, concerns that you have, and I'll share with you what I know. But I'm going to be here and develop you through it all. I'm not going to stop doing what I always did before. I'm not going to change how I show up for you. And I think that they needed that reassurance to know that there is something that's going to remain the same in the midst of everything else changing. And I don't even know, how I came up with all of that in that moment. I think it was just a little bit of intuition and just a little bit of trust in myself that I have been through these things before and many had not. And so when you have gone through it at least once, you kind of know how the process is going to go and it's not going to be fun. It's going to be bumpy. But when you can just admit that that's going to happen and accept it, it's much easier then to navigate whatever comes along.
Wow. Yeah. Even while you were saying that, I felt so like supported and warm, even though I wasn't part of that situation, but I was thinking too, man, there were so many times in my career when I was in corporate that I never got that level of support. There wasn't that trust, transparency. Also, it felt like kind of addressing the elephant in the room, right? Of like, hey, here's what could happen. It could, people are going to leave. Some people might choose to just leave the company. Some might be sent over there. We don't know, but this is our reality. We're in now. We're here. This is happening. And I'm here for you. Come to me along the way. And that's just so like this loving directness that is supportive. I think a lot of times we just try to, again, deny. We're like, oh, things are happening, but we got to just keep going. We got to keep producing, doing everything the same it's always been. And I think that's usually the attitude by a lot of leaders is,
Yeah.
oh, come to me with whatever questions you have is basically the minimum support you get, but everyone's afraid to speak up with questions because it doesn't feel safe or it's still so uncertain. And they're wondering, oh, is someone going to leave, or am I going to be sent over here? Should I look for another job? Everyone's spiraling in their own heads. But
Right.
I think when you can address it that directly, people maybe slow down that anxiety spiral a little bit, or it helps normalize it maybe to a degree too. And people can be more open about their experience and their emotions and their fears and anxieties along the way, and not just ruminate in their heads and then vent to their spouse or friends at night over happy hour.
Yeah, I mean, I will say as the leader, you do have to find ways to talk about that situation that's happening though. So we established my level and the next level above. We would have probably weekly at some point along the way, but at least every other week we would all come together and just kind of talk about what we heard, what we were hearing, what was coming, because of course information's coming down, but then as you get into closer to the change actually happening, there's a lot of decisions that get changed, a lot of new information, a lot of things that haven't been answered yet that no one knows what to do with. And so it
Mhm.
felt like a really good, safe place to have those conversations at my level because I couldn't have those with my team. So
Nice.
I think wherever you can find support, that might be internal in the company, or you might have an external mentor. I think it's good to process for yourself what's happening and be prepared because you may or may not be staying. You don't know all the time. And
Mhm.
when that happens, you don't want to be surprised. You need to be somewhat prepared. So that's the what can I control moment. I can't control what's happening, but I can control for me what I'm going to do. And that's, I think those situations happening earlier on in my career probably led me into figuring out a plan B that I would be ready to execute when something else happened because it's just going to happen. It's just a matter of when, and you have to be ready for that.
Yeah, instead of denying and resisting, you were accepting and preparing. and
Hmm.
and when you have that level of acceptance, it's almost like you can handle whatever comes your way.
Yeah.
It's less of an emotional reaction, it's more of an intentional response. I've thought through this and I'm prepared for it and I can do something about it. And yeah, I loved your example too about getting support from peers at your same level, especially as a leader. I think a lot of times, again, we take on that burden. We have to take care of our teams, we have to be there for them, support them, but we're not getting support ourselves, especially if your manager or leader isn't telling you much. That's so smart to have kind of your own, board of directors at your own level that you can vent to, you can learn from each other, and you can have that safe space for you to share your fears and anxieties where you don't want to share it with the people on your team because that might cause more of a spiral with them. But having that place to vent and brainstorm in a productive way really makes a ton of sense. I love that. And I feel like most people don't proactively do that, especially having set scheduled meetings in advance. That's so helpful. I love that idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad we prioritized that. I think it was really helpful. And plus, you also learn a lot of information that you may not get from your direct management, but other managers are sharing with their teams. So it was I felt like we were getting all these puzzle pieces and we're trying to work out what the puzzle is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do recall that being something that was really smart to pull together. And I feel like you're right, that middle management, the groups that are leading teams, are in the midst of all of the stuff that's happening and don't always think about how do I take care of me through this change and navigate that in the best way that I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other things that you did or recommendations you would have for a leader of taking care of yourself, maybe personally, so that you're not going into that anxiety of, am I going to have a job tomorrow? Like, why should I even, care about this anymore? I know that
Yeah,
most
yeah.
people's thoughts.
It can be. Yeah, I think, well, for me personally, when I was going through that, I remember some days I would wake up and feel like, not chest pains like I'm having a heart attack, but stress chest pains.
Mm.
And I started getting up early, and my husband leaves for work really early. So after he would leave for work and before I got the kids up, I would sit in quiet for like 5 minutes, just in the dark. And I felt like it gave me this opportunity to just be calm, just not have anything else going on. I didn't look at my phone. I didn't look at anything else. And it really did help me because it clears your headspace a bit, where you get to just be quiet. And we don't take enough time to be quiet. We're constantly busy. We've got TVs on or everything's on around us. And just doing that, I think, helped me free up some space. The other thing I did is, I don't know if your audience is familiar with this, but I'll share. There's a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And in her book, she has this thing that's kind of famous. A lot of people talk about it, which is writing out everything that's in your head. You can just write for 3 pages or 2 pages, whatever you feel comfortable with. But that was really helpful for me too, because it doesn't have to be formatted or beautiful. You just literally do a brain dump of everything that's in your head. And writing it is so much more impactful from a brain perspective than typing it out on your phone or on your computer. So I did that for quite a while too, because I just needed to get out the things that I couldn't talk about with other people, maybe even internally at all. And I just wanted to process that this is happening and how am I going to deal with it? What am I going to do? And, I had small kids in the first situation and, dealing with that and trying to be a good mom and wife and all of those other things we have on our plate, not to mention just working. I wanted to be in a good headspace as much as I could be, with everybody. So I think those are 2 things that I felt were really helpful for me. And I have a lot of people that I have do that. Meditation is another one that I think is also helpful. You can do Calm app or, Headspace, whatever you might want to do. But 5 minutes is really very impactful to help you just slow down and really recognize that there's only so many things you can do in this situation and what can you control. And so I found that to be really helpful too. So I also recommend that to clients now.
Totally agree. Those are great recommendations for just clearing your head, clearing your energy, your physical, even physical energy. I feel like
Mhm.
sometimes when we're in this stressful change, uncertainty, I think we tend to get into that like fight or flight where our body is
Mhm.
just like tense all the time and we're like, oh,
Yeah.
we gotta do something, we gotta do something. And then if you can just find those times, 5 minutes. Honestly, a lot of times with my clients, I'm recommending just 3 deep breaths. Just close your eyes, 3 deep breaths before a meeting, before you start work, before you check your phone, whatever it is, just create more space.
Yeah.
Like you said, we don't give ourselves enough space or quiet time, alone time with your thoughts. It's okay. Again, it might be another thing that sounds scary, but it's okay. You'll get used to it. It helps a lot. It's okay. We'll give you permission. And
Yeah, big permission slip for everyone. Just breathe.
definitely. Yeah, one other piece I wanted to touch on too before we go to visibility was thinking about one of my clients popped in my head of they were going through a lot of change and uncertainty and it was a small team, maybe 5 people, and they even had to the leader let someone go due to poor performance. And then they were saying, oh, I think the rest of the team doesn't trust me now. So it was
Mm.
again change and uncertainty in a different way of the team was changing and then their team seemed to kind of shut down from them. So what we worked through, even in our conversation, I said, well, if it were me and I were on that team, my first thought goes to, well, I'm probably next, right? I don't know why that person got fired. Like it was not very transparent. And I think a lot of times stuff like that happens where you had mentioned transparency being very important. And I think sometimes there are maybe legally, professionally things we can't share, but you have to share maybe an intention behind it, or again, the transparency of what's to come for what you know of, even if it's okay, we had to let someone go. I can't tell you why. I want you all to know, like, you're doing a great job. I'm here for you. Please let me know if you need to talk about anything, things like that. But I think sometimes we're quick to make change sometimes too, or we're like ripping off the band-aid when it's something like that and uncomfortable. And then we're like, all right, this person's gone. So we need to be aware of what the people on our team might be thinking or worrying about. And again, kind of address the elephant in the room as much as you can.
Yeah. And sometimes I think the team is actually going to respect you more for handling, like if you have to let someone go for, performance issues or something else that might be going on, I think it helps because otherwise, if you don't deal with it as a leader, then it gives a permission slip for everyone else to not have to be accountable, not have to do the things that they need to do. So I've seen it both ways, right? Where someone leaves unexpectedly, and then you do have to pick up the pieces a bit and figure out what are we going to do? How are we going to navigate that? And again, that's a place for calm and composed thinking so that you can be able to communicate that to your team and how you're going to handle it. But I think in my experience, I've had a few situations, and I had one with a client recently where she had to let go of two people. And she was really worried about the same thing you just said. They're going to be mad, they're going to be upset, they're not going to trust me. And I said, just take it head on, like just talk about it because they need to know that this was the right decision for the company, the right decision for the team. And
Mm.
I've always been an advocate for if you are making a decision and it's the right one for the company, then you're doing the right thing. And I think sometimes that gets lost in the relationship side of things, right? I've worked with this person for 16 years and I can't leave
Mm.
them and I don't want to upset them and they only have, so many things that they can do and they can't do this job. You tell yourself whatever story that you need to tell yourself in that moment. But at the end of the day, most of those decisions actually end up helping the company in a much bigger way by letting that person go. And maybe you get someone in who's stronger, who's actually going to do the job in a much better way. So there's a lot of scenarios that happen, but I think I think I'm sharing here with you, vulnerability, transparency, integrity, I think are so important and where you can leverage them as a leader. I just think it sends a better message for everyone to hear and it allows you to show up in the way that you want to.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't have to be completely transparent about what happened, because
Right.
then it gets into like gossip. And again, legally, sometimes you're not able to share stuff, but like what you're saying is that intention behind of this is what's best for the team, the company, and getting them on board with the decision as much as you can too. Because I think sometimes, again, people, like you said, people get emotional. It's their friends they're working with, or they've known them forever, or sometimes they just don't see the bigger picture of how it's impacting the organization. So yeah, I
Mhm.
agree. It's kind of shepherding them along with you, even if they can't be part of the decision. You need to help them understand the decision and continue moving forward.
Yeah. And I think it's how you approach it as the leader and how you communicate it. I remember one person when I first came to corporate, um, he was on our team, and our leader at the time said, "So he will no longer be part of the team." And it was just out of the blue. Nothing.
Mm,
There was,
yep.
what? Okay. And you're kind of in that moment of what's happening. And I knew he wasn't doing great, but I think it was interesting. Her style was very direct, and there's no more conversation about this.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, just coming into corporate at the time, I had been in the field in sales. I didn't even know what to do with that, right? It's just not how I had seen things be handled before. So recognize that not every leader does it in the way that you might want them to. And they're probably doing the best that they can to navigate
Mm-hmm.
it as well. But yeah, it was a bit of a shock. I remember that day very vividly.
Yeah, I have a few of those memories as well, where it was just a very like one sentence, very short, very brief, very direct, and that's it. Like, period. We're moving on. We're not talking about this anymore, and there's no
Right.
room for questions. And like, okay, I guess we'll again. That I think that's when that fear comes in of, oh my gosh, she got fired. Could I be next, or what did they
Mhm.
do? What am I missing? And that spiral that happens, and that fear. Okay, so as we're transitioning here to our last few questions, I'd love to focus in on visibility. Again, we mentioned it at the beginning. This is your area of expertise. I'd love to hear more about how you're helping clients be more visible or have more influence at work, and what are some of those common topics you work through.
Yeah, right now it's been very interesting since the first book came out. I recognized that there was an opportunity to help people learn how to communicate, be more strategic, more intentional with their visibility. And it's not top of mind, right? They're just doing what they do every day. They're going to meetings, they're having conversations, and the intention behind it is important. So, one of the things that I've been working with them on is thinking about whatever accomplishments, results that you've had. What did you do to make that happen? Did you influence something? Did you help a decision move forward? Did you, bring more team members on to help support the group so that it works in a better way? Whatever you did. And then why does that matter, right? So I'm working on this big project. We recognized we had a budget shortfall and we need to, get more funding, or we need to get new people on the team to help us move it forward. And as a result of that, now we can, get the project done a month early or something. Whatever it is, you have to make it mean something. And I think we are really good. I call this the tell versus show. I think we're really good at telling people what we've done. And
Mhm.
think about a one-on-one with your manager. You go in and give the litany of things that you have done. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. but you're not really talking about why it matters or what your role was in it. So I call it, showing value and impact in those conversations to help people understand why it matters, why it's a big deal. And the other piece I think that is challenging for people is minimizing their strengths, minimizing what makes them unique, minimizing the things that they do every day that they just don't think are big deals. And most of the time they actually are. So I'll have people come in and say, well, tell me what you're doing. They'll give me this whole list of things. And I say to them, who knows that you've done those things? Well, I haven't really told anybody. I mean, it's just part of my job. It's just what I do. Okay, but you did something really big and you're not talking about it. So no one knows. And those big things could be something that helps people see you differently, changes your perception, maybe gets you in line for future opportunities. So I'm just trying to help them reframe what they're doing in a different way and see how they could talk about it in a way that isn't bragging, is just facts. We're not making stuff up here. We're actually taking what you've done and just turning it into language that people can hear. And to me, like active language, talking about the things that you've done in a, even some cases, more direct way of what you've accomplished goes a long way. And I just think it's a missed opportunity when people tend to hide those things, thinking that they don't need to talk about them.
It seems like that's such a norm for people, or again, maybe the comfortable place is
Mm-hmm.
to go through my to-do list of this is what I did in the last week. But instead, if we took it to the next level and made it more of my value add list or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, of here's why I'm important, here's where I'm adding value, here's why I'm needed here, or yeah, whatever it is for you and your position. I think that's so important, and people forget that because we do just get lost in the day to day of this is my job, this is what I do, this is my next meeting, this is the next thing on my to-do list. And yeah, people don't think about the bigger picture a lot of time of how that impacts your team, the organization, and the value you're adding. So kind of translating that, I think, is super important. I love that you're putting it that way too. I'm giving specific recommendations for people. And yeah, anything else when it comes to that value add? Because I'm curious, as I'm thinking about it, I come from corporate too and did a lot of strategic roles, so I think that comes naturally to me of how to think about that bigger picture. But do you see people like struggle with getting to that value add or the strategic picture? Because
Yeah, I mean, it's
I've
not
seen
their
that.
norm.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned it's not comfortable, for sure. Yeah, it's just not comfortable. So I have a framework in the workbook called Value. It's an acronym. I love a good acronym. And I feel like it helps people take this worksheet, which they can do in like 10 minutes. And basically, they're walking through the steps of what visibility opportunities do I have? How can I amplify something that I want to talk about? What language do I need to use so I can be heard? What's unique about what I'm doing that might not be what everyone else is doing? And so
Mm-hmm.
they do those first four steps. And then at the end of the week, the E is evaluate. What did I do this week that I said I was going to do? How did I do it? Are there missed opportunities? And so then they could roll those over into the week after. And what's really interesting is it just causes this moment of, oh my gosh, I never thought about that, or I didn't even consider that as something I should do. And it's about slowing down long enough just to look at what you have in front of you and what could you be doing with it. And like I said, most people are operating on autopilot. They're just going through their calendar, doing their meetings, doing their thing to get through the day. And if we can change that to be something that is really intentional and strategic, it will change how people see you very quickly, honestly. And so now I use it with clients and have them walk me through, like, what did you put on your value plan? What did you do? What are missed opportunities? And I can see it from a different lens because sometimes you have blind spots that you can't see for yourself. And so I'll just help them see where there might be some other opportunities they could have done something different, but it really is moving the needle for them, and they're really surprised at how quickly it can do that. So that's just one of the frameworks. I don't even know how many, I should count how many are in the
Mm-hmm.
workbook, but so many things that I had done along the way with clients that I finally was able to put into frameworks and different templates and stuff in the workbook that helps people be able to use them.
Yeah, I love that specific framework with specific questions and self reflection work people can do on their own. on a week-to-week basis. And it sounds like even that will help them recognize their wins more too, of here's all the things I'm doing. I'm not just doing them and checking them off a to-do list, but I'm reflecting on them and sharing them with someone else. And there's a lot of value in that too, of building their confidence and being able to share it with other people as well.
I'll tell them whatever you put in the E bucket is what you would then talk about with your manager, or what you're talking about with other people in the organization, or what you're putting in your performance review. So, all of those things could be leveraged for other conversations. And so it's been really cool to see how people start to use it now. And it's just something I was doing for myself. And I think it's great that other people can start to do it too.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sue. How can listeners get in touch with you or learn more about your work?
So I'm on LinkedIn. So you'll find me there. It's Susan M. Barber. My website is susanmbarber.com. I would love to connect with anybody. My website, you can learn about the books and the podcasts and everything that I'm doing, either on LinkedIn or on my website. So love it.
Yes, sounds great. And we will put links in the show notes so you can quickly find Sue and get in touch. And yes, thank you again for your time today and sharing all of these specific techniques, recommendations, and tactics for our listeners. And thank you to our listeners for joining today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like or subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. And it really helps new people find the podcast and the support that they're looking for as well. That's it for today. We'll see you in the next episode.